You may be wondering, what is a Metroidvania? Well, it's a portmanteau of Metroid and Castlevania, but really, it's just a good time. Welcome to Triple Click, where we bring the games to you. Today we are talking about Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, because I guess some prince lost his crown. Maybe you should go to the dentist and get it replaced. I'm Jason Schreier.
I'm Kirk Hamilton.
And I'm Maddy Myers.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello.
We have made it despite disaster this week.
Yeah.
Yes, I've survived the worst weekend of weather that I've ever seen in Portland, Oregon, and I gather maybe one of the worst weekends of weather this city has ever had.
Yeah.
And here I am, alive.
It's kind of all I want to talk about.
How long did you not have power?
Yeah.
So it was freezing here, below zero, wind chills, and in my house we did not have power for almost 3 days.
Wow.
For 3 days and 2 nights.
Including no heat. Like no heat, no electricity.
No heat. We wound up, ask me anything about generators and how to get your heater running off of a generator. And I can tell you a lot more than I could have told you
4 days ago.
A few days ago.
Yeah.
I know about propane and how propane works in the cold, man.
Wow, you're just like Hank Hill.
I've learned a lot. Hank Hill is my new best friend.
Cool.
Propane for the win.
Propane accessories, you know all about them.
Well, maybe one day we'll do a bonus episode about surviving the apocalypse. But in the meantime,
triple prep. We can do some prep.
In the meantime, we have a lot of other bonus episodes, which you can, of course, listen to by becoming a supporter of our show. Become a Maximum Fun member by going to maximumfun.org/join and signing up and helping us make this show possible. That's how we do this thing. We're listener supported, and we have bonus episodes every month in appreciation for all of our supporters, including the one we just did in December, which is a Beans cast, a spoiler cast where we did a deep dive into Baldur's Gate 3. And this month we are going to be doing an episode where we talk about the best other things of 2023. We already did our best games of 2023. Now we're going to do all the other stuff, the movies, the books, TV shows, etc., etc. So look forward to that. And if you are looking forward to that, but you're not a member, now's your chance. MaximumFun.org/join. All right, Maddy, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about a video game called Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown that I started playing. And then I started haranguing you two to start playing. And I mean, I have the luxury of being able to do that and tell you two that, despite the game only being available to our listeners on today, this very day that the episode drops, because I got a code for my Nintendo Switch from work, because I'm the person at Polygon who likes Metroidvanias, and Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is a Metroidvania. It's made by Ubisoft Montpellier. They actually made a couple Rayman games that I really love called Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. I don't know if you two played those in the early 2010s.
I sure did,
They're
and
so
I love them as well.
Good. And I haven't thought about them in years until I played this game, which I truly just, I installed it for work. I had no expectations, and I wasn't immediately sold. You know, first couple hours I was like, this is fun, I'm having a good time. And then a couple hours later I was like, wow, I really don't want to stop playing this game. And then maybe 10 hours later I was like, this is my life now. All I do is play Prince of Persia. And now I'm almost done. I think I'm on the final boss. Or at least I freaking hope so, because it's really hard and I haven't beaten it, and I may never beat it. This might be as far as I get in this game, but I'm obsessed. I'm really enjoying it, and I want to hear what you two think. Oh, also I should say this is actually my first Prince of Persia game. I'm not a Prince of Persia person. So I think I want to hear from Kirk first, because Kirk, you're more familiar with the Prince of Persia legacy, and maybe you even have feelings about the Sands of Time remake that has been much delayed and is not this game. So don't be confused, listeners, if you're thinking this is the remake of Sands of Time. It's not. It's not that.
Okay, well, maybe we can just list some other games that are not this game.
Well, I feel I've had this conversation more than once where people are like, oh,
really?
Is that new Prince of Persia that they've been making? And I'm like, well, yes, but it's not the one you might think it is.
Right, it's not the remake of the old game.
Yes.
I really like this game from what I've played of it. As I mentioned, I didn't have power for most of this weekend. I would have much rather been playing Prince of Persia than doing anything that I did all weekend, but I wasn't, unfortunately. And I didn't have the Switch version at the time, though I actually do now. And thanks to Ubisoft's sort of cross-save compatibility, I was able to take my PS5 save and load it up on the Switch. And I will say that Switch is a great way to play this game. That's like my Metroidvania machine. I played Hollow Knight on that, and I played Metroid Dread, and now I'm playing this. So yeah, I have played The Sands of Time. I believe I reviewed The Forgotten Sands, which was a 2010 Prince of Persia game for Kotaku. I don't have very strong memories of it. Bing! Future Kirk here, trapped in a temporal anomaly as I edit this episode and existing in parallel with my past self. Just wanted to say the reason I don't have strong memories of it is that I didn't actually review it. That was Stephen Totillo, but I definitely did play it. Anyway, back to the show. Bing! But it was a pretty good game, more of a platformer, and I've always thought of Prince of Persia as more of a platforming series than a combat series, and I've never thought of it as a Metroidvania series because as far as I know, it never has followed that format. It's been a little bit more just a series of levels. So Prince of Persia is a cool series. It goes way back. I mean, Jordan Mechner, the creator of Karateka, created this game next. Like, it was his follow-up to Karateka. So it's one of the, first video games. It really goes way back. You can look at footage of the first Prince of Persia and see some really interesting stuff.
1989.
Wow.
Yeah, 89. And Karateka, of course, a game that is really interesting that I learned all about last year because I contributed to the big Digital Eclipse sort of museum piece that celebrates Karateka, and I did something about the music for that game that was really fun, and that process, of course, taught me a lot about that game and about Jordan Mechner. So that's the kind of genesis of Prince of Persia, which then at some point transferred to Ubisoft and became a Ubisoft endeavor. I believe it was owned by Broderbund before that. It's kind of one of those long publishing sagas. So Ubisoft bought it, and then they put out The Sands of Time, which is a really legendary game. It was really beloved by egg-headed game critic types because it did something with a platformer where it kind of allowed for the narrative to fit the platforming into the story, because the whole game is being told by it's being narrated by the prince. So anytime you would die,
ludonarrative consonants. We love to see it.
Every time you would die, he would say wait a minute, that's not what happened.
Yep.
And it would kind of flash back. Plus the game was built around a time rewinding mechanic that was really cool for a platformer at the time, because you'd screw up a jump and you could just rewind time. That game holds up.
Was this before or after Bastion?
Way before.
Way before, right?
Sands of Time
and before
was
Braid and so on.
Well, Bastion had the narrator. That's what I'm referring to, which kind of...
Let me see. Oh, yeah. Sands of Time was 2003.
Oh,
so
okay.
This was much, much earlier. And a really cool idea, which then, of course, Braid played with that idea too. Jonathan Blow's Braid, where you rewind time, and it's a platformer where you can control time, or at least in some parts of Braid. So that was that game, and it was really cool. It was a thinking person's platformer, kind of. There was some combat, but the platforming and the puzzles was always the sort of central attraction. So here we are playing this game. It's a Metroidvania. It feels to me much, much more in line with actually Hollow Knight, my beloved Hollow Knight. It really takes some great lessons from Hollow Knight. We can go through specifics later, but I have not been able to play as much as I wanted to, but I've just gotten the second sort of major power-up, which is a teleport, warp, time-bending ability that seems to be a huge game changer and came after a really cool narrative sequence in this game. So that's how far I am. We can maybe talk about anything up till then. I don't actually want to hear anymore because I do find this game very delightful and want to be surprised by it, but that's a fair chunk that we can talk about.
I don't want to spoil any of the other power-ups after that. I think that one that Kirk is on is around when the game really clicked for me. I mean, that makes it sound like I wasn't enjoying it before then, but that teleport was when I was like, this is so cool. Now I can do anything, which is always how you feel when you get a power-up in a Metroidvania, and then you're like, wait, there's 16 more doors.
There's so much I still can't do.
What? But it feels for a second like you can do anything. So Jason, what do you think so far?
Yeah, I love it. I'm a little further than you, Kirk. I've done a few more things. Explored a lot more of the underground areas, which are extremely Hollow Knight. Yeah, it's a really just a fantastic Metroidvania. Like it feels up there with Metroid Dread in that kind of that upper echelon. I don't think it's quite Hollow Knight level, but Hollow Knight is really a masterpiece. But it's clearly very inspired by Hollow Knight. It's got a lot of similar feels in a lot of way. Even the way that you kind of swing a sword and make contact with an enemy has very similar kind of sensations. The air dash, which you get pretty early, feels a lot like Hollow Knight's air dash. Even the order of events, so you get the air dash first before you get the double jump. I'm assuming
have
I
that in
haven't
my
gotten the
notes.
Double jump, yeah. It's fun. It's a cool way of doing it because you learn to maneuver space in a different way than you would with the double jump, and then you can add the double jump on top of that, which I assume will come at some point because there's got to be a double jump. Also, I'm kind of struck by how much inspiration it takes from Dark Souls. There are a lot of shortcuts that you unlock between your save points, and
yes.
it doesn't do the whole Dark Souls thing of you lose all your money when you die and you have to go back and get it, but it does do the Dark Souls thing of when you die you respawn at the nearest tree. Those are the equivalent of bonfires or benches in Hollow Knight, and you have to find your way back to where you died,
and all the enemies are back too whenever you're back
right
at a tree.
Well, yeah, but not every time you rest. Or
enemies respawn constantly. Actually, like there are times you'll just go back through an area and they'll be back.
That's more like Metroid. Yeah, like that was why in Dark Souls I always was like, this is kind of easy. It's not like Metroid where they just respawn every time you turn around.
The point I was getting at is more that when you die, if you've unlocked a shortcut, you can get back to where you were more quickly, which adds to that rewarding feeling of exploration and being like, oh, okay, great, found a shortcut now. I don't have to worry.
And you
much.
Keep your items too. Like not just your money, but like an item you get. Like in Dark Souls, if you just only barely get a precious key, you have it the whole time, even if you die.
Right. You don't really lose anything, so it's not quite as kind of doesn't quite have that sense of danger that Souls games do. But yeah, I really like it. I mean, the one big downside for me, and I'm curious if you guys have experienced it, is the bugs. So I've gotten a few really nasty ones, including one side quest bug where like I was talking to this character. I don't remember exactly what the side quest was, but I was talking to this character, and then suddenly everything kind of froze while I was leaving the room, and there was a weird camera glitch, and then I left the room, and then when I check my journal, the side quest is just like completely blank for me. It's like totally glitched out. And so that sort of thing, that combined with a few other kind of weird bugs here and there, give this sense that like, oh man, this game needed a little more time to cook.
What are
and
you
needed
playing
a little
it
more
on?
polish. I'm playing it on the Switch.
Oh wow. Okay.
But these aren't like performance bugs.
Right,
these are kind of like gameplay bugs. So yeah, that's been a bummer for an otherwise excellent game that I'm enjoying quite a bit and feeling like, oh wow, like it's January 18th, the day we're publishing this, and we're already seeing a strong like 2024 contender. Like, hey, maybe this will make some of our lists at the end of the year. But that bug stuff, I mean, it's a bummer. It's a big detriment on a game that I'm otherwise really enjoying.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I haven't had any of that. And I've had a couple of crashes, like just straight up black screen crash to desktop, like maybe 2 or 3, but everything was still there when I booted it back up and nothing worse than that. So that's too bad. And I wonder if there's going to be a day one patch that maybe fixes up some of that.
That'd be nice. I haven't had any yet either. Like I said, though, I haven't played that much. I did see some folks who have gotten it early. I think if you subscribe to Ubisoft Premium Plus, Super, whatever it's called, if you subscribe to their service, you can play the game a few days early.
Yeah.
And I was looking at a thread, I think, on
Ubisoft Premium Plus Super Remake plus
right.
Turbo.
Right. I was looking at a thread, I think, on Reset Era, and some people were saying they had run into a side quest bug as well. It might be the one you're describing.
Interesting.
So
yeah.
I do think that's a thing, which is too bad, just because in this kind of game, you really count on your progression being consistent. Mm-hmm. So that's a bummer to hear. I think, so let's talk a little more about how this game plays if we can, because I have a bunch of notes of all of these interesting things they're borrowing, which, it's definitely a game where you can look at each individual element and kind of trace it back to something. Like there's a map vendor that you find in levels that hums. There are a lot of things in this game that feel lifted from Hollow Knight. Mm-hmm. But then again, it's really hard to do that. Jason, you mentioned the feel of the game, the way that the air dash feels, the way that combat feels, the physicality of your sword swings. I should say Sargon's sword swings, the main character. And yeah, I feel with this game more than any platformer that I've played, that my exact Hollow Knight skills carry over to this game. Like, it feels like I really practiced these exact skills and now I'm getting to use them. Like the float, the feel of the air dash, the way that you can stick to the wall and then air dash back to the wall.
Yep.
It just feels exactly right. I wrote this in my notes. So if you play saxophone, you get really good at playing like the B flat blues. That's like a key of the blues that you really just, it's the first thing you learn on sax. And then even when you're like professional, you just have a million licks in B flat. Every tenor sax player, it's like B flat blues, I can go. So then you learn a bunch of other tunes. You learn how to play over different changes, which is kind of like other video games, other platformers that I've learned. But then every now and then someone will just call a tune that's like full on B flat blues and you just get to shred in the key that you're really comfortable in. And this game feels like that to me. When I'm in a really thick fight, I'm like, dude, I can do this already because I learned how to do it. It's kind of the B-flat blues of Metroidvanias for me.
Wait a minute. Okay, so what you're describing, the Hollow Knight skills 100% translate to the platforming. The fighting feels totally different because you're dodging and countering, which you're not really doing in Hollow Knight. I mean, Hollow Knight doesn't have like dodge and counter cues.
I definitely wouldn't go that far. I think the dodge and counter is really cool. It's like a sort of Sekiro style color-coded dodge counter.
You mean the parry?
Like a red attack.
Yeah.
A red attack is a dodge, a yellow attack is a counter.
Yeah, so like when you're fighting bosses, that to me feels totally different. That feels more like a Sekiro, more like a traditional action game than Hollow Knight. So I'm surprised you feel like your Hollow Knight skills are translating.
Well, really, I mean, the platforming is a huge part of this game. I would say a bigger part of the game than the combat.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Those are the skills I'm talking about.
Got it.
Even in combat, I mean, the verticality, using the air dash to stay above an enemy, attacking downward to bounce upward, like a lot of those moves are the same moves that I use in Hollow Knight. And I find myself thinking geometrically in the exact same way about a fight where I'm trying to get up, I'm moving over, I'm like tracking the enemy. And it's just these little brain patterns that I've trained into that part of my brain that just reawakened the minute I started playing this game.
So, okay, the reason that I bring this up is because I actually found it really fun and interesting and subversive that I'm like conditioned to do that, jumping over an enemy, bouncing on them, like air dashing away and so on. But then the game switches that up by throwing some tough bosses at you that require you to use the parries and the counters and fight them in a very different way than you would fight in a normal Metroidvania. I guess Metroid Dread has some similar ideas.
Yeah. The parry concept is in there. And I think that's where they got it from, to kind of continue Kirk's thread of where they got their influences. Like parts of the parry, like I don't remember what they call it. It's like a plot parry where they're like, if you parry a yellow attack, you will get a little cutscene play out.
A sick cutscene where like Sargon does a sweet kick to the person's head or whatever.
Yeah. And they call it something like that, like a narrative parry or whatever. And it's like, kind of motivates you to do it, not only because you're going to then have a successful counterattack opportunity, but also because if you're in a boss fight, then you get this cool cutscene and you're like going to maybe advance to the next stage of the boss fight and take down a bunch of health. It's great because it's training you to do something that's really important. But most of the time, I'm honestly sliding under the bosses. That's my favorite thing to do. I don't
Sliding
jump over them. I love
is
sliding
cool.
under them. It's so good.
So there's some tough ones, man. This game, one of the things that I really like about this game, similar to Hollow Knight, is how challenging it is. The boss, I was just fighting a boss that was a royal pain. The one that it's kind of like a crab with a giant shield that you have to like get under or around, but it's kind of a pain to get under. And I won't get into much detail, but it's very fun to fight.
They definitely get harder and harder pretty linearly, which is
it's great.
I
love
it. Depending on how you feel about me still not having beaten the final boss.
Well, you'll get it. You'll get it. You'll do it. You'll pull it off. There are a lot of difficulty settings, unlike a lot of games of this nature. Unlike Hollow Knight doesn't have difficulty settings.
Yeah, and Metroid Dread didn't launch with them, but I think it has them.
It added
now.
them later. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the difficulty settings is even like parry timing, which I find the parry timing to be enjoyably tight in this game. And actually, since recently getting good at Lies of P, which also has very tight parry timing and a really similar parry dodge, red, yellow, etc. system. Like, it's cool to learn another parry timing, but it is slightly different than the parry timing in each of these games, and it's hard. So it's kind of cool that you can adjust it.
It's kind of a classic video game thing, huh? Like, how many years have those cues been in place of like red, gotta dodge, yellow, gotta parry, or blue sometimes?
Yeah, it's like purple is rare, yellow is legendary, blue is common.
Yeah. But the challenge is really enjoyable, I find, and I think really kind of takes it up a notch. I found that there are a lot of Metroidvanias released every year. I really like the genre, so I try to check out at least some of them. The ones that I bounce off and don't wind up finishing are usually the ones that are easier, not necessarily because I dislike them, just because there isn't really anything keeping me going. And in this game, I feel like what is keeping me going is that difficulty and feeling like I'm gradually getting challenged, and I can't wait for like really tough platforming challenges like what Hollow Knight does with Got Home, and I'm excited to see what's coming, although the bug thing is kind of that albatross as I go that is making me like, oh, maybe I should just wait.
Yeah, I hope you don't run into any more. I've really had good luck with it, so I'm hoping that just doesn't happen to you anymore.
I'm finding the game to be welcoming in some clever ways that go beyond the accessibility settings too. And I think those are worth mentioning, because while this game is challenging and you can adjust the difficulty, but I'd say playing it on the default difficulty setting, that kind of feels like where they tuned it. And it's a hard game for people who like hard games. Like, this is for people who like Hollow Knight, which is a very difficult game.
Or Metroid,
but
from way back.
They've added some nice stuff. Like, there's this kid who will give you a hint. So for a very small amount of currency, you can just get a hint on where you're supposed to go next. And that can be really useful.
I always pay for those because I just like the dialogue in this game. And she always says the hint in a fun, poetic way. And I just like hearing what she has to say about the ongoing events. So I'll just pay for them. It's only like $30 or whatever the currency is. Feathers,
right.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's almost nothing, especially once you're a little later in the game and you're making that much from a single enemy.
And I just like making small talk with the NPCs in this game. I'm really enjoying them.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Like, it's just helpful to know that you can go check in with someone and have them tell you where to go next. There's also a really nice feature that Frushtick wrote an article for Polygon about, that I think he was very right to call this feature out because it's so cool, where one dedicated button, it's just down on the D-pad, just snaps a screenshot and adds that to your map, which is so useful for a Metroidvania, because you don't have to mark something. You know, in Hollow Knight, for example, you have these map markers, and you have to kind of remember, okay, wait, this one just looks like a little bug head. What does that mean? Does that mean like a high jump, or does that mean...
And you still have map markers too in this game if you want to use them, but being able to take a picture that's like, okay, I can't get across these stupid spikes yet, and I don't know why, whatever. And then later you have a power where you're like, oh, that's easy now. And you can just quickly scroll through the map and look at all your pictures and be like, still don't know how to do that one. Oh, but I can do that. And then just go straight there. It's the best.
Right. So it's a way that you can check your map and then remember where the places are that you'll be able to use a new ability when you get it. Also, little things like when you're in a boss fight and you die, you can just retry the boss fight.
Yes.
Right from the start of the fight. You don't have to go do a dumb run. Also, those trees that Jason mentioned, the bonfire-esque trees, they're always placed next to the very difficult platforming challenges. So if you do die on one of those, you just can start right away. And also, usually the platforming challenges, you just lose some health each time you screw up. Like, so it'll be, I don't know, there was one that I just did, which was this room that fills with poison. Do you guys remember this room?
Yep.
And you have to kind of, it's a classic Prince of Persia style thing where you're jumping across poison and then you have to time it. So suddenly some, safe ground comes up in the poison, you jump on that, go up to the wall, you hit a what would you call it? I guess like a trapeze, like a pole that you swing around, and you have to do that, shoot across, use the air dash, there's a bunch of spikes everywhere. It's just totally crazy. And I mean, I'm sure some very skilled player could do it on their first try, but you totally eat shit a few times before you pull it off. But the nice thing is there's a tree right there. So you're slowly losing health, but it's not that stressful feeling of in another game, if you're really kind of far away from a checkpoint and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to need my health. I'm thinking of the, what's it called in Hollow Knight? That really ludicrous, the Path of Pain in Hollow Knight. I just remember that, like, you're so far away, especially as you get farther into it. Like, I would kit myself out just for healing so that I could get just a couple of hit points so that I could keep going. And that's a little less of an issue in this game.
But that's also what makes it all the more satisfying when you beat it. There is a balance there. You don't want the save points to be too frequent.
I mean, for what it's worth, the game is going to slowly do that. And that's another thing about it that I find really satisfying. So eventually you get more and more kind of platforming challenge opportunities, and they'll be way far away from a whack tree, and you have to just have enough health on you to get through it. Or if you're me and you're not that good at it, you just kit out your amulets, which is like your collection of little power-ups that you can only edit at a tree, which I also like.
And speaking of Hollow Knight influence, just saying.
Yeah. So you choose your amulets, which have different powers, and you collect different amulets over the course of the game. And usually those really tricky, far off platforming challenges that don't lead to a new area, they're clearly optional, will have something really good as a reward. Like my favorite reward is a blank amulet slot, because then I can just add in another amulet. That's the best reward. But those eventually are only reserved for the hardest platforming challenges. Like you can buy a couple of them from the shopkeepers, but eventually they're sold out, quote unquote, and you're like, what, I just can't buy infinite amulet slots? And then you got to just start getting really hard on the platforming challenges, which is so fun. It's just great.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to 100% this game. It has that feel to me.
Yeah, I'm absolutely doing that. Like I am leaving my final boss run to go complete more platforming challenges, insisting to myself that if I just had more amulets or the right amulets, the final boss will in fact be easy, which is of course how every Metroidvania should be designed.
Yeah, I think so. The really difficult challenges that I've done, which are pretty early in the game if you want to do them. There was one to get a Xerxes coin, where you have to basically get in and get out, which is another fun kind of challenge. So you start in the air, basically. You jump across some spikes, you hit a pole, you swing from the pole down to the wall, you drop down to the next level, you jump over some more spikes, hit another pole, land on a platform that falls away after you're on it for a second, jump up to the wall, and then you get the coin. And then you have to get out. Which I didn't realize the first time I did it, and then was this wonderful feeling of like, oh God, okay, so I have to plan this whole thing out, and you wind up building this whole kind of intricate dance in your head where you work out all the timing and go through it, and I can only imagine. I mean, that was the first one of those, so I'm sure they get much more complicated. Plus, it was designed to be completed just with the air dash, so once you've got a double jump and whatever else, you're having to like, juggle all of your abilities in the air without touching the ground through this whole challenge. I mean, if it were any other game, if the jump and dash, if everything felt different and I was having to learn a whole new kind of jam, I don't know that I would be as satisfied with it. But because it's this literacy I already have, it feels so good and so comfortable. It maps so onto what I already know how to do. I'm just like loving that. It's like an excuse to use all these skills. It's so cool.
You have to be good at it to enjoy the challenge. That's for sure. I think that on top of all of this stuff, the one part of this game we haven't really talked about is the story, which I find pretty interesting as well. The story, I really like in short, is that you're playing as this guy who's kind of a warrior of this Persian kingdom, and the prince gets kidnapped, and you have to go and save him, and you wind up in this big area, which is where the game is set, called Mount Kuf. And it is essentially kind of like a time prison where people can potentially stay for years without realizing, like, there's different people are in different accelerated timelines, and all sorts of wacky time shenanigans are going on, which allows for some cool stuff. There are a couple things that I really enjoy about the story. One is that you, as an immortal, are a member of this kind of elite force with 6 other dudes who are also dudes and gals who are also immortals.
Dudes and ladies.
Can I ask a quick question? I want to make a distinction here. Is that your group of soldiers are called the Immortals, but they are in fact mortals.
That is correct.
Right?
They're mortals.
Humans, because you meet actual immortals in this game.
And they make fun
and I was a little
soldiers.
confused at first. I was like, wait, am I an immortal?
I loved that when the blacksmith makes fun of you for saying you're an immortal, and she's like, "You're immortal, you dumbass."
Yes. So just wanted to point that out to listeners that you are immortal actually, but your group is called the Immortals. Continue, sorry, Jason.
So the thing I enjoy about this is that they are all keeping you company as you go, and so they'll duck in, they'll come help you fight some enemies, they'll say some things and they'll jump away, and it really feels like you're exploring this area with like a group of people, which I think is a really cool kind of unique feeling that I haven't seen in a ton of games like this. The other thing that I think is really cool is just the time shenanigans and how that also kind of weaves with the gameplay, because a large one mechanic is that you are trying to restore things that are out of time in levels of the game, of areas of this mountain. And so for example, the fast travel points that you find throughout the mountain, you have to kind of hit this energy orb to restore them back into their proper reality and proper place and time. And I think that's a cool concept, and it's fun to do. And it's fun how every time you get into an area where time is messed up in some way, like the screen turns all weird,
it turns all purple
and
spooky. Yeah,
something funky's going on over here.
Yeah,
it's a little like that game Singularity. It's a similar idea where you arrive at an island where time is all screwed up, and that allows for a bunch of cool narrative developments, because you'll meet characters, and at first I was kind of like characters from your squad, and at first I wasn't really that into all of them. Like, I didn't know who they were. But as you meet them, it gets more interesting, especially because sometimes you'll meet one of them who appears to be very different, or like a lot of time has passed for them, because that happens for people. Or you'll even meet soldiers from the conflict you were just fighting in, and they've been here for like 50 years and they're like old men. And that stuff is really cool. It's just like a very clever, it's almost like Lost. Like, it feels a little like the way that Lost just throws these surprising, weird time twists into things. They're having a lot of fun with it. And yeah, I'm definitely more into the narrative now that I've played a few hours than I was at the beginning, which is really cool. I'm really on board.
Yeah, I really dig it. It reminds me of Ocarina of Time as well, in that instead of playing as Princess Zelda, which you never get to do, you're not playing as the Prince of Persia, you're playing as just some guy who is trying to protect the prince, along with a lot of other people whose job that is. And you're pretty naive at the outset. Like, Sargon's a trained warrior, he's good at fighting, but he also is in over his head at the outset in the way that every video game character would be. Like, he's level 1, as it were. And then as time goes on and he's meeting more and more people and learning more about kind of the palace intrigue aspects of the game, and like, why would somebody kidnap the prince? What's really going on with this situation? And he's getting powers along the way as well. He gets to become battle hardened. Like, my Sargon in my current era of fighting the final boss is like totally kitted out. Like, you know, if he were to go back in time, say, and meet young Sargon, that would be like a totally different guy. And I always really liked that concept in Ocarina of Time, of like Link changing over time, but still being sort of a fundamentally pure of heart person who has to like learn about his place in this larger world. And it's like this story of identity across all these generations. And I don't know, I really like that as a storytelling device in a game. It's a classic one, but if it ain't broke, you know? Is
this just part of your year-long campaign to get us to let you win the prediction
bets? Who could say? Who could say? I mean, the time travel part is in there too. I think that's cool. Sargon doesn't get an ocarina though, or at least he hasn't yet.
See, this is kind of like Far Cry 2, like the way that time and like fire is like a metaphor for the passage of time, and malaria is like decay over time.
So true, man.
Keep it going. How far can you go?
I could probably vamp for a little bit longer. I'm going to make a couple of small mechanical complaints that I'm just going to lodge. I wish that when you started running, you kept running in the next screen.
Yeah.
That is something that kind of bothers me. If you have to do a slide, and then if you hold down the right trigger to run as Sargon, he stops running in the next screen. And I was like, come on, let me run through multiple screens. I just kind of would have expected that, or it's like a little mechanical blip. And also, I wish there were an easier way to map movement onto the D-pad instead of the thumbstick. I'm okay with the thumbstick, but I really prefer the D-pad for a game like this. I found a way to do it, like you can put movement on the D-pad, but it's a little weird. I think it doesn't quite work. Like I hope that they just patch the game and release a second control setting where they just make it work, where like the two things that the D-pad does are just mapped onto the thumbstick clicking or something, I don't know. And you can just fully control the game with the D-pad, because I would at least really prefer that.
For all movement, you mean? That's interesting. Yeah. Is that how you play Hollow Knight as well?
Yeah, and I believe how I played Metroid Dread too, though I'm not sure if that game lets you do that or not. But again, actually, I don't really find that, I didn't find that Metroid Dread had quite as demanding platforming. Am I remembering that wrong? Like, I know that game was
No,
tough.
I think you're right.
No,
Yeah.
it was
But,
more of
yeah.
the shooting and the bosses were tougher than the platform.
This definitely feels. I haven't felt this type of I haven't felt this way playing a game since Hollow Knight. Like
Yeah.
this type of really wild, tricky, trapsy.
For me, it reminds me of Celeste, which we haven't mentioned
It
yet.
is, yeah. It's got some
But-
Celeste
Yes,
in
Celeste
it.
is a good
That
comparison.
game is so hard, but also similarly has some really extensive accessibility settings where you can, like in my case, just have infinite air dashes. Because that's like the only way I could get through that game. And still feel like I could be kind of
Celeste
good.
is a good comparison.
But yeah.
Yeah, the platforming, I think the idea of just being constantly in the air above a lot of spikes and just like using the walls to jump off of. And then I think this game, unlike Hollow Knight and unlike Celeste, has those poles that you were mentioning where you propel yourself in a given direction, and it plays around with those in some fun ways. But yeah, I mean, it's just pretty classic stuff. A lot of this stuff harkens back to the NES days and has just gotten more and more refined over time. And the feel of it is always what makes the biggest difference between like a great platformer and just a good platformer or a mediocre platformer. And I think this just takes the mechanic, the systems designers and the people who were designing the platforming, the animators and so on, probably just played so much Hollow Knight because it really just has the same sort of rhythms as Hollow Knight. In that it just all feels like incredible, like it's so slick and it just feels so smooth, and it feels like everything you want your Sargon to do, he will do. It's very responsive. It doesn't, you never really feel like the game is kind of holding you back in some way. It always feels like you're jumping exactly when you mean to, dashing exactly when you mean to. And I have never felt, even in the tough parts of this game, never felt like it was being unfair or anything like that. It always feels like
his moveset is remarkable too. Like, he has a lot more moves than the game really teaches you, just between the dodge, the different kicks you can do out of a dodge, like the running jump kick. You can do a jump back, which is a nice, speaking of Souls, it feels a little bit like a Souls game. Where just a dodge while standing still does a jump back, which is very helpful. You can do a downward attack or like that downward slam if you hold down the button. So if anyone is playing this, experiment just in an empty room with all the different moves Sargon can do, because they are all very helpful. His charged attack actually is really useful for a lot of slower enemies because it does a ton of damage. I was forgetting to do it for a little while and then remembered, okay, wait, once I know this attack rhythm, I know when I have time to do a charged attack, and it's super worth doing.
Yeah, the other kind of negative, and Kirk, I'm surprised you haven't brought this up because you were the one who first complained about it to me, is kind of the way it looks. And I think it has kind of, I don't mind it necessarily, but it does have kind of a generic look where, Kirk, I think you pointed out to me, I think you texted me the other day that it kind of it resembles a mobile game or something like that, where like the faces are a little bit generic, a little bit just kind of like, oh, I've seen that in a lot of different games before. In fact, I saw some memes on Twitter about black hairstyles and how so many different black characters in video games use that same Killmonger hairstyle, where it's just like
The side cut, the locks.
the locks that are just like jutting off to the side, and even that just feels so generic. And Sargon, I think, is an interesting character, and he's got some an interesting enough personality, but the look of it all, it just feels very like, oh, okay, this looks like a lot of games I've seen before.
Yeah, that does bug me. It bugs me less now, I think, that I've played a little bit more because I've just sort of adjusted to how it looks.
Yeah,
and I think
sure.
the voice acting is good. I really actually think the music is fantastic. Kirk here, just to shout out this game's composers. It was composed by a two-person team, Gareth Coker, who some of you might know as the composer behind the Ori games, a really fantastic composer, and Mentrix, an Iranian musician whose actual name is Samar Rad, who I was not familiar with, but she's super great, and she brought, I think, a lot of the Iranian influence to the soundtrack. It incorporates a lot of cool Persian instruments and sounds that's very specific to the culture of the characters in the game. So yeah, it's a fantastic soundtrack, and I haven't even heard all of it, but I can't wait to hear more. It's really, really cool stuff. So shout out to those two composers for doing great work.
The music is really good.
Really, really cool.
And the animation, I should note that even though the art direction itself is a little generic, the animation is really fantastic.
Right. And so that's something I've noticed in cutscenes is that actually like Sargon's face, like when they're having conversations, it looks really cool. Even if it's like a mix of the graphical style and the art style, it does just look a little bit like a generic game. Like it looks like one of those games you'd see an ad for during the Game Awards in the middle of some huge run.
Yeah, which I feel like we did. And I feel like that's part of why this game just didn't stand out to me at all.
Right.
Like
because there was an ad during the Game Awards, that's why.
Well, and really, when you think about Ubisoft, like when you think about something like Valiant Hearts or Child of Light, like they are an artist studio. They, even Rayman, like they make games that are like vibrant and really amazing looking. And I do think this game becomes quite beautiful, like environmentally.
Yeah, some of the environments are surprising and wonderful.
Exactly. Like the more I've played, the more I've uncovered like a really cool, like a solarium with, you know, constellations up on the wall. Like you'll find your way into these really beautiful looking areas. So actually, I really like, don't mind how it looks. And furthermore, this game runs beautifully on the Nintendo Switch. It runs at 60 frames per second, and that's really cool. It's just that, partly compared to some other Ubisoft games where you can tell they like let their artists off the chain, make something that looks really dramatic, make something that looks beautiful. This game is a little more like make something that looks like any other game and then just happens to be like amazingly designed and really fun. And the game would probably be better served if you looked at it and you were like, whoa, what's that? Like if it just had that too, because then it would also be sensationally made. And I just think that would probably help more people be interested in playing it. But in the end, it hasn't mattered that much to me the more I play.
Yeah, that's what Hollow Knight has for sure.
Yeah, Hollow Knight does have an extremely distinct visual
it's
style.
extremely, you
it
look
has
at Hollow
that
Knight,
going for
like,
it. And
yep,
so does
that's Hollow
Celeste,
Knight.
honestly.
Yep,
like
Celeste
Celeste looks a really certain way. And
so
that
does
helps
Metroid
it.
Dread. Metroid Dread
true.
is a very specific, like very kind of metallic tones, and
like
it's really
shiny
an interesting
and dark.
game.
Yeah.
I think the animations, not only in the cutscenes, but also the gameplay animations are really good. And I think that's a large part of what helps it feel so just like satisfying whenever you do anything is because it's animated really precisely and feels and looks really good.
Yeah, and I mean, Sargon's animations are fantastic. It's definitely one of those things that you don't think about unless it's not working, but like every animation in the game, especially enemy animations, are very clear and easy to read, and once you learn all the moves, it's like super easy to tell what's coming and what the timing is going to be.
Since we're sharing complaints, I'll share mine, which is not really a complaint. I wish that there were even more environmental puzzles in this game, because there are a few that I don't think you two have really gotten to yet, but every now and then there's just like a really big room with a bunch of gears in it, or a bunch of weird boxes where you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but I can't figure out how to progress. And then you just have to use your powers or like step on a series of buttons or move things around in a certain order and then air dash around to get to the right place at the right time. I simply love that type of puzzle. I just love it. Like it's Metroid, it's Zelda. It's what I love about that kind of game. I could play that forever. It's Portal to me. And when you solve it, you're like, I'm a genius. It's obvious. I was supposed to teleport from here to here. And now it's so clear and I'm the best. It feels so good.
The main puzzles that I've been solving are the ones where you use the glaive or the boomerang, whatever it's called, the sort of modified boomerang, which is this, or I guess it's the bow that then becomes this boomerang, where you throw the bow itself and it becomes the spinning device that can kind of power various devices. So you'll come into a room where there's a bunch of lifts, and each lift has this circular like ring attached to it that if you throw your boomerang onto it, it'll make the lift activate. And what I really like about that kind of puzzle is that you're basically leaving something in the room that's activating one thing, but you can only activate one device at a time. So you have to think about when you're going to pull it back to you, which will cause the thing that was going, like the lift that was moving, to lower, and then throw it to cause the next one, which you need to activate to, raise or lower. So
yeah, I love that. And when you have multiple powers in play and you need to remember which one to hit it at the right time, it just feels so good. And you get to feel like a genius.
It's in line with, like, I guess, I mean, it is a puzzle, but it's in line with the platforming, because the platforming is itself a puzzle, because you have to figure out the order of moves that you're going to do. The puzzles are just give you a little bit more downtime and force you to think, I think, a little more creatively. But the whole thing is very holistic. I think that all of the movement All of the platforming, all of the puzzle solving really feels like it just sort of stretches in one direction or another direction. And it's only really when you're just in a room with a boss that you're just doing a fight and it's a little less puzzly. But the rest of the game really feels holistic in a way that I think is super impressive and a lot harder to pull off than it might feel when you're just doing it and not thinking about it.
Maddy, before we go and take a break and go to one more thing, you know what game has incredible environmental puzzles and nothing but them is Crosscode.
Wow, that is true. That's
there we go.
True.
We got them all in there.
And now that we've come full circle, I guess we'll leave it there. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Pretty good video game.
Great game.
We'll take a break and be back with one more thing.
Most of the plants humans eat are technically grass.
Most of the asphalt we drive on is almost a liquid.
The formula of WD-40 is San Diego's greatest secret.
Zippers were invented by a Swedish immigrant love story.
On the podcast Secretly Incredibly Fascinating, we explore this type of amazing stuff.
Stuff about ordinary topics like cabbage and batteries and socks.
Topics you'd never expect to be the title of the podcast. Secretly Incredibly Fascinating.
Find us by searching for the word secretly in your podcast app.
And at MaximumFun.org.
I'm Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
I'm Elliot Kalin.
And together we are The Flophouse, a long-running podcast on the Maximum Fun Network, where we watch a bad movie and then talk about it.
And because we're so long running, maybe you haven't given us a chance. I get it, but you don't actually have to know anything about previous episodes to enjoy us, and I promise you that if you find our voices irritating, we grow endearing over time.
Perhaps you listened to one of our old episodes and decided that we were dumb and immature. Well, we've been doing this a while now. We have become smarter and more mature, and generally nicer to Dan.
But we are only human, so no promises.
Find The Flophouse on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get podcasts.
We are back. It's time for one more thing. I think we all have books this week.
Triple book.
The tri-book.
Triple read. I'll go first because although mine is a book, it's really more of an activity that I'm doing. So I read a book called Liftoff. It's by Johnston. And I got this book because I started following her on Blue Sky and reading her blog, which is about fitness. It's called Ask a Swole Woman. I don't know when I started following her, but she has pretty good political opinions, so I feel like it started because of that. And then I was like, oh, she's a fitness blogger? Okay, I guess I'll read her blogs. And then I ended up buying her book and reading all of it in like a day.
Nice.
And now I'm doing her weightlifting routine. So the full title is Liftoff, Couch to Barbell. Not really applicable to me because I've done powerlifting before, the kind where you lift the bar over your head. Used to do it in my 20s and actually keep up with it. And then time went by. I don't have a gym membership. I haven't for like a decade. I don't own a metal bar that's that size or a way to put it anywhere in my house, and I probably never will. But the purpose of Liftoff is to teach you the fundamental weightlifting exercises that you can do with either your own body weight or free weights that would basically allow you to eventually lift the 45-pound bar that is in a gym. And I'm talking about the big bar. Like if our listeners are never lifting weights, I can't blame you. It's a very specific type of hobby to want to do. But it's like that really big one that you see in like powerlifting competitions where they lift it over their head, or they do like the deadlift where they're lifting it from the floor and using their entire body. And I didn't necessarily need the book, but I really like reading books like this because I'm always curious just what different people use to motivate them to do something that is really repetitious, which is exercise. And Johnston has a lot of really great meditative explanations of how she's just always correcting her form. That's just how she thinks about it. Like even now, she can lift way more weight than I can or ever could, even in my 20s. She's always correcting her form and just kind of meditatively thinking about that as she lifts. And I think that's really cool. So I've been doing that and kind of getting back into that and remembering how good it feels to do body weight exercises and lifts that use your entire range of motion. It's very satisfying as an exercise. So if you're a listener who's never done that, Liftoff is a really good beginner's guide to getting into it. You don't have to get all the way to the end of lifting a 45-pound bar, let alone one that has plates on it, but that is what the eventual design of the book is for. You can also just use it to learn like the basic exercises that are full body exercises for lifting weights and are really useful for pretty much any person that wants to like get a little better at taking the cat litter inside or whatever heavy thing you're lifting in your day-to-day life that you wish were easier for you. And so, yeah, I recommend it. I'm really glad I got it and that I'm back on the train, getting stronger.
Casey Johnston, Kotaku split screen guest. Many years ago.
Yes.
This was a surprise reveal for me.
So Casey is a very old friend of mine. She used to write about games for a spell. She was at Ars Technica for a while. She was more of a tech/games writer, and I've known her since I was coming up in the beat.
That's cool.
And then a few years ago, she got into weightlifting and started pivoting to that as her main beat, and that's what she's been writing about since. But she came on when she was starting, or maybe a year or two after she had started, Ask a Swole Woman, or her body weight lift, or her weightlifting and bodybuilding kind of advice routines and columns and stuff. And she came on and talked to us a little bit about that. What was it, 2017, 2016?
Wow,
Yeah. No, yeah, it was a while ago. It was cool. She was a great guest. She's very awesome. Ask a Swole Woman is great.
I feel like there's a lot of overlap there. Like if you are into games and getting better at a game, then you might actually really like weightlifting, even if you don't think you would. And even if you're like, oh, I don't want to like pack on a bunch of body weight, like it's so nice to be able to lift that cat litter though. Just lift it with ease, bring it inside so easily, pounds and pounds. It's really, really nice. Carrying in the groceries, like tons of bags at once. If that doesn't sell you, what will?
Yeah, being strong
It's
is
like
nice.
It's like getting power-ups at Sargon. It's exactly the same. So Kirk, why don't you go next?
Nice. My one more thing is also about acquiring a new skill. So last time, 2 times ago, I don't know. Recently, I talked about a Kelsey McKinney essay about learning piano and mentioned that I'd been reading a book about learning music as an adult. And I finished that book. It's really good. I just wanted to shout it out and recommend it to anybody who was interested in that Kelsey McKinney essay and in this topic. The book is called Guitar Zero, The Science of Becoming Musical at Any Age. It's by Gary Marcus, who is a noted...
Is that a Guitar Hero joke, by the way?
It is, because it was written in 2012.
Great.
When more people would remember that. Gary Marcus is a cognitive psychologist. He's like a professor at NYU and kind of a big deal in the world of neurology and psychology. He actually writes about AI too.
Wow.
He's, I think, pretty skeptical of AI and wants more regulation of it. He has a book called, what's it called? It's like Rebooting AI, that's kind of about the rules for AI and how we should tackle that. I think he wrote that in 2019. So he's an interesting guy who I think writes about a lot of interesting things. This book is about how he actually played Guitar Hero, probably, I'm guessing, in 2007, 2008, and has never been musical at all. Like, he just could never count rhythm. He couldn't sing in tune. He could never just play music in any capacity, but he's always loved music and wished that he could. And then he played Guitar Hero and he was like, oh my God, this is the first time in my life I've ever done something musical successfully. Like, I'm playing a song in Guitar Hero and it rules. So then he set out to learn guitar. At the time, I think he was kind of in his late 30s, so like right around 40, and started learning and became fascinated, I think, by the process, the challenge, what it is that music requires of your brain, especially the guitar, and how weird and demanding it is to learn. And he then wound up writing this whole book where he goes and talks to all kinds of people, famous musicians. He talks to like Pat Metheny, a bunch of other famous guitarists, but also neurologists and people who understand the brain and understand language. There's a lot in there about language and how children learn language. He looks a lot at how children learn music and, you know, the way that it's so much easier for kids to learn music and to learn language as well, why that might be, all the different parts of your brain that music requires you to use, whether there's like a talent, like what talent even means. It's a really, really interesting book, just if you're into this kind of thing. If anyone out there knows of Oliver Sacks or has read his book Musicophilia, which is similar. Oliver Sacks, of course, a neurologist who really got into music in the brain as well. It's like that. It's a little more approachable, but it is really a really fascinating book that I found super interesting. I've become really interested in this subject because some of my friends and people I know are adults who are learning music. I hear from Strong Songs listeners all the time who get inspired, listening to that show and are like, all right, I'm finally going to do it. I'm going to learn guitar or pick up the guitar that I put down, when I was younger, which is probably the coolest thing that's ever happened because of Strong Songs. Like, it always makes me really happy. And of course, I've been really getting serious about guitar over the last couple of years. And even though I'm coming at it from a different place, because of course I had a lot of musical training, I still can really relate to that feeling of forcing your brain to just build these new connections and this new gray matter that can handle this bizarre thing that is the guitar fretboard in particular, because the fretboard is so this strange math equation of sort of recursive strings that don't really quite follow a pattern. So anyways, it was really, really fun for me to read it in particular. And I think he's a great writer and has a lot of fun just tackling his own process. So it's a great book. I really recommend it. Guitar Zero, The Science of Becoming Musical at Any Age by Gary Marcus. So yeah, big recommendation for that one.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, Jason, hope your book is good. What is it? How'd you do?
My Wilbur thing is also a good book. It's a book called Battle of Ink and Ice by Darrell Hartman. And it is set, it is a nonfiction reported book that is set in the late 1800s / early 1900s. And it's about two things, the ink and the ice. It's about the polar exploration of that era and this battle between Robert Peary and Frederick Cook, who are both explorers from America, who both claim they've discovered, and they were first to discover, the North Pole.
Wow.
And it's about, at the same time, the ink is the newspaper battle of the era between the New York Times and the New York Herald, and each of them are kind of run by these fascinating characters. The Herald especially is run by this guy named James Gordon Bennett Jr., who is this debaucherous, playboy, fascinating dude who is goes into exile in Paris and has all sorts of interesting anecdotes surrounding him. And what's really interesting is that this is a very different time for the newspaper business. This is an era where newspapers are unafraid to just post fiction and make things up and do these super splashy. I mean, if you think clickbait is bad in the modern era, this is really out of control, crazy stuff. The stuff that would be printed in this era. This is where the term yellow journalism comes from, and there's an interesting anecdote in the newspaper sections of this book about that term especially, and where it came from. It came from this kind of two newspapers both printing the story. I'll leave the specifics to the book, but it's really interesting. And it's also about William Randolph Hearst and his empire, and Joseph Pulitzer and his empire, and a lot of really interesting news moguls of the time and their battles. And so the book is structured in it's a confusing structure in some ways. It bounces around a lot between the newspaper stories and the polar exploration stories, but fundamentally it's about this who's going to be the last surviving, who's going to be the victor of the newspaper wars, and who's going to be the polar explorer that actually reached the North Pole first. And so there is some interesting narrative tension there. And it's really well written. It's a very well constructed story. It doesn't try to, there isn't any purple prose or embellished text the way that the newspapers of the times might have included. It's a very straightforward telling, which I appreciate. There isn't made up dialogue or anything like that. And I always appreciate
a Jason
that with
Schreier
a
pet
nonfiction
peeve,
book.
as we well know.
Yes. And so I'm really enjoying it, despite what can be a kind of confusing structure to follow. It's a really good story and really interesting if you care at all about the newspaper business, and even if you don't. I mean, I think it's pretty interesting. There's some good kind of details about exploring the North Pole and those kind of frigid Arctic adventures that explorers would go on, scientists would go on back then, and that stuff is really interesting. And there's a lot of foreshadowing for our modern era. Some stuff about fake news and that term being popularized at the time, and a lot of other kind of interesting little nuggets that get peppered in throughout the story. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Also, the first book that I'm reading on my new Kindle that I mentioned last week, which by the way, I paid the $20 to just get rid of the ads, and my life is finally in peace. They did get me. But yeah, really good book. It's called Battle of Ink and Ice. Came out last year by Darrell Hartman. And yeah, I recommend it for sure.
Wow.
Nice.
Sounds like 2 books that I need to read. Great. Yeah. I just have to finish Prince of Persia.
That's what we're here to do. Recommend books to people.
Which is going to be easy. I'm going to wrap it up real quick right after this. It's going to be the easiest fight of my life.
You got this.
And with that, it's been another episode of Triple Click, folks.
Yeah.
We did it again.
This was fun.
Yeah.
See you both next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddy Myers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.